Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our October 6, 2025 meeting of the Audit Committee. We welcome you here and hope you're here because you are so interested in audits, because they are very important and interesting, and of course we rely on them. So a call to order. We have an opportunity to give members of the public a chance to speak about anything that they think is instructive for us, or so the microphone is open if any of you would like to step to the microphone for a quick public comment.
There are no speakers at this time.
Okay, thank you so very much. And now to our discussion items. Item 1 has to do with audits, the 24-25 audit engagements with the Crow Company. And we have a representative here to speak about the status of the many audits that you folks are doing.
So thank you, Trustee
Thank you.
Emerald. With that, I'll ask Dr. Sokol to introduce, but I believe Liz Saab is here to present today, but Dr. Sokol?
Thank you, Trustee Emerald and committee members and Dr. Geary. So yes, we have the audit partner, Elizabeth Saab with Crow with us today to give us an update. We actually have her team on site this week to do the final touches on the work that we've commenced back in May, and then also over the summer, and now this is the final review so that they can start to prepare the audited financials for the bond programs, the various ones, the various measures, along with our district-wide. So she will be providing an update.
You? Okay. Oh, you can turn me off. I see. Okay, there we go. I will only say what's appropriate. So like Dr. Sokol said, we started this process back in May, performing your district-wide audit. Just as a reminder, we do a state compliance audit, so that includes attendance at your sites, independent study, all sorts of different grant reviews that are required by the 2024-25 audit guide put out by the state of California. So we follow that to the letter of what needs to be done. In all honesty, I feel like that takes up about half of the time that we spend with your team is now state compliance. It's a lot of the project. We will also do a single audit or federal compliance audit. So we are undergoing that as well. I think there's a couple of programs that are under audit currently, and making sure that the funds were spent in compliance with what it was intended. And then in accordance with the compliance supplement that the federal government puts out, we have to make sure that certain controls are in place, that there's different items that we make sure exist. And then for the financial statement portion, my team is literally down the hall working feverishly on all of your testing that your lovely team over here has been providing us as quickly as they can. We ask for hundreds of documents and requests throughout this process. And as you'll see on the next, on one of the next areas, that there are other ongoing audits besides ours. So we know that they are working hard to make sure that we get to the December 15th deadline, which is the state's deadline for everything to be finalized for the external audit. So we're working as quickly as we can. Prop O and Measure DD, as well as your Measure RR, we're also working with that concurrently. We are preparing those reports, going through and reconciling all of that activity back to the other audited financial statements of the district, looking at sites and bond projects and physically observing them, making sure that they actually exist and they're what they say they are. So we are undergoing that as well. We have no findings to report to you at this time because that's not in compliance with how we normally do it. We wait till we're actually done. But when we meet back in December, we will let you know if there are any findings. We'll let you know what those are. But at this point in time, everything is running according to timeline. Any questions?
And nothing that jumps out at you?
No, not at this time.
Okay, so you'll be back December 15th or thereabouts and give us some results?
Yeah, I think we will be meeting like December 1st, 8th, the 1st, yeah.
We'll bring back to the audit committee or the subcommittee on December 1st,
Yes.
all the financials, which will then be recommended to the board on December 8th for
Yes.
approval.
Okay, so some weekly meetings coming up with regard to the audit. Okay, and so far, no glaring issues?
No, at this time, we don't typically share if we have any potential findings in public session until they're actually finalized, but we don't have any concerns. If we did have any concerns that came out of the process that we felt like we needed to circumvent management, we would contact Trustee Emerald as the Audit Committee Chairman right away. So the fact that you don't hear from us is good news. If you do hear from us, that means that we need to have a conversation with you. But when you hear no news from the auditors, that's a good sign.
As the saying goes, no news is
No
good
news is good news in the world of audit.
Okay, that's
Yes.
terrific. One concern I had, and I just want to throw it out because I noticed this throughout the booklet, that so many of our audits are being done months after the services were completed. And how is this comporting with getting timely information out on how we spend money and what our priorities are?
Yeah, that is the nature of our audits is, we're always looking backwards a year. And I know you and I actually had our one-on-one meeting earlier, and I was sharing that your management team is providing information and background documentation for things last year. They're managing the current year and trying to make sure things are being spent properly in the current year. And then they're budgeting and planning for the next year. So they're always living in 3 different fiscal years. And so when we ask for information, they're always like, okay, what year are you looking for? So from our perspective, our job is to come in and say, is what you said was going to happen what actually happened? And was it spent appropriately in accordance with the law, whether we're looking at state compliance or federal compliance, or just from an accounting standpoint, was it recorded appropriately in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles? That's what we're typically going to ask and look at. But from the lag in time, I can speak to the external audit. If you were seeing continual extensions where the district was needing to extend past the state's deadline of December 15th on a regular basis, that might be something that you would be concerned about as a committee member. But the fact that we are moving, assuming nothing terrible happens, as long as we're moving in accordance with our timeline, we shouldn't have an issue reaching that deadline, which should give you comfort as a committee member. And the other thing I would say is when you have delays in audits or significant findings, usually that's because operations are struggling throughout that year that is under audit. Or maybe internal controls aren't functioning properly. So if you get to the end of the audit and it's timely and you don't have significant findings, that can give you confidence in the information that you are receiving throughout the year for that current year that hasn't been audited, but you know that your management team has historically had good audits and timely audits, and that can give you some confidence in the information that they're giving you throughout the year, if that makes sense.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm always a hog on the microphone. Old habits die hard. Does anybody else, Mr. Solis, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say thank you to our team and to your team for the work that's been done. The constant has been, our team's always been on it, and I know we had some issues back in the past, but they've always been
Doing great.
accessible and given everything that you guys needed. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
Superintendent, any comments?
Likewise, I want to extend my gratitude for the team here. I know that Liz is down from Sacramento, I believe. And so the fact that they're here making their audits and reviewing kind of our data, and our teams being very collaborative. It was not that long ago that it was a very different context. And for us, having the ability to reflect on what has been and the journey we've been on, I think is a positive reflection of all the good work that's been happening within the district and also with our audit partners. So
Terrific.
thank you for everybody.
Any comments, sir?
I've appreciated the audits over the years. It really has helped us chart our course for a successful financial future. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. So December 1, 8, and 15, those are pivotal dates.
Those are pivotal dates.
Okay.
You guys, on December 1st, you will receive the full draft. I believe you'll receive it in advance of that meeting, but we will go over the full draft of the financial statements with you. A reminder that it will be in draft form. It won't be finalized. So that way you as a committee can review it in draft form with the intention that we will issue and finalize the next day. So it will go to the board in final form.
Okay, Thank you so very much.
you're
Anything else
welcome.
you'd like to add?
No,
Okay,
yeah, thank you.
very good. We go next to financial reports. Dr. Sockeld, is that you?
We have the ongoing and completed external audits, so 1B. So as was previously mentioned, so in addition, because we do have some new items to report here, so as Elizabeth Sav mentioned, in addition to the district-wide audit, we now, in terms of the last few weeks, we received an IRS audit for the 941 tax return for 2023. And the district also received an audit for CalSTRS. Again, to your, I think, point, Trustee Emerald, as you mentioned, these dates that are selected are upon those respective agencies. Unlike an external audit, it always looks back a year. These particular agencies are pulling data based on their own criteria and the respective work that they're doing. We have compiled a lot of that information and have been in communications with those representatives. So I think that's going to be some work here over the next few weeks, perhaps months. So we'll continue to have these updated here. One that was also noted last time was the School Food Authority. We had received a notice that that work would be commencing late September, early October. And that's the one that we work very closely with Janae Quirk and her team, Eric Span, Nutrition Services. That example too, data has been collected and has been submitted. So a lot of these that are on this table here are in process right now. But again, various points in time, various criteria, it can depend on the agency.
And you'll give us a heads up as to when those reports will be ready for a presentation.
Yes, we'll bring those back, so we'll keep the committee apprised of this, and then any of the closeout reports will be presented to the committee. And then if there are any findings or corrective action plans, we'll have that discussed as well.
Okay, very good. Since you mentioned Ms. Quirk, do you have anything to add on the food issues? No? Okay, all right, later on, okay. Financial reports, am I on the right spot? Unaudited actuals.
So,
From
yes,
24,
in that
25.
section, as Ceci brings this up, so for the benefit of the committee, I know that two of you trustees have seen this, because our last report was presented to the board in September. But this is what kicks off the work with the CROW team. It's our unaudited actuals for the fiscal year. So that's everything that we know of actual revenues, actual expenditures from July 1 of 2024 to June 30th of 2025. So it's not a budget document, as I've shared before. This is now what we reconciled to as to what is we need to reflect in terms of actual what we call accruals during this time frame, when we reflect what should have been collected for revenues and what should have been accounted for in expenditures. So that needed to be presented to the County Office of Ed by the 15th, and that's when we brought it to the board, was on the 15th. And so just to highlight a couple of the slides of what was presented, I think if you can go to the next slide, Ceci. This one here is a year, this is really tiny for me to see way far away. It's the year-over-year slide, and we do this to provide that context. I think Dr. Geary mentioned kind of like where we've been, really kind of provides that perspective from 2017-18, where the fund balance was, all the systems and improvements we've put in place over the last few years. Then you can see where the district is at financially. The bottom line is around $290-some million. Now, granted, a portion of that, we do have it footnoted, is part of the LCAP carryover. So the district has to earmark those funds because it gets rebudgeted and accounted for in the subsequent year. And so that was a little over $50 million. But again, you can kind of see that track over the last few years. Okay. And then if you go to the next slide. Yeah, that one. This one just shows the comparative reporting that we've done during that year, which is our audit year. And so, again, you can kind of see where we estimated, it's that second to last column, when we were doing the work in June, what our estimated actuals were at the time. We thought it was about $232 million bottom line. But as we do the work over the summer, we also have some liabilities, which we call encumbrances with purchase orders and other things that we evaluate. Things came in a little bit more favorable, so that's where we ended up with the 297. So you can kind of just see where the progression was throughout the year. Okay.
That's a big difference of 60-some.
It's a little
Million.
bit, to say, let's say not conservative, because when we're doing the work in June, there are purchase orders, so there's a lot of liabilities in terms of people costs and items that have been placed. So we're assuming that those are gonna be paid. So we can't assume until we close the books and those go away. We look at invoices, we look at the actual expenditures. That's when that comes into play.
So we still have numbers coming in that will change. this.
From June to the work over the summer, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and then the next slide, I think, is that with the fund balance, yeah. So here you can see, again, those puts and takes with the revenues and expenditures. And then what I was highlighting earlier, we commit the LCAP fund, so it's a little bit over 53, almost $54 million. And then the difference we have under the declining enrollment, and just as a reminder, the district has in the projections a structural deficit. So the district is relying on that amount of reserves to help carry us forward in the out years. So it'll be utilized here going forward. And then there is the set aside, again, from the state requirement of the 2%, almost $12 million. And then the board set aside as well through one of the resolutions with an additional 3%. So everything's kind of categorized in that revenue section, but again, accounted for as we'll need it going forward.
Gotcha. And you've got a comment, question?
It was actually on slide 7. We can go back to this one. We ended up having, this one?
On before?
Well, it was in regards to the textbooks. We're still spending textbooks and paper about 25 million. My question was, now that we've gone electronic, overall, are we seeing a savings because of that or not? I just thought it was a very high dollar amount that I was seeing for that. I'm sorry, I wrote down my notes this slide. Yeah.
So that particular column, just the accounting mechanics of it, it tends to be under the SACs, the way that coding is. It rolls up, it says textbooks and supplies, so it's not all necessarily textbooks. But we do work with our teaching and learning department, and they have been going towards the way of a lot of licenses in lieu of the textbooks. I think sometimes just the categorization.
So do we have a net savings from doing that versus doing, hard-covered textbooks?
So I think what we've seen is a repricing strategy from publishers as we've moved more to a subscription-based model, wherein the pricing for subscriptions has changed compared to what it previously was. Also, what we see more is kind of a complementation or complement strategy where we do have the hard book complemented by some of these subscriptions. So I think that's a long way of saying I don't know that we've necessarily seen any price savings. It's a great question. But I think the one thing we all understand about inflation is it tends to not happen in reverse, and deflation is actually very not common. Right. So,
Essence, the bulk of the cost is the licensing of the information.
I would say that it's we've seen more kind of complementing. So we still use the hard books, but we also are complemented with subscriptions or other digital means of providing curriculum and instruction.
But protecting the material itself, the educational material that's been published, and that's part of the cost.
It's more towards pricing of content.
Yes.
And so the content can be either in hard publishing or in digital platform, but it's really the content that's
But
what
one
we're
would think that you're not hauling a lot of heavy books around, so it ought to be less expensive, but I guess not. Brain power is worth something too. Okay, anything else? Dr. Sawkill, did you want to add anything to that?
I think, again, this
Question.
ties into what was presented previously by Elizabeth Sav, so it all ties back to the work that we're concluding with changing this unaudited actuals to audited and complete for the year.
Okay. Our next item has to do with list of fundraisers and expenditures for associated student body organizations. Am I at the right place?
Yes, and as Ceci pulls that up, so we bring this to the committee annually because we start our work reaching out to principals, the assistant principals, those that particularly work with the student activities, If they have any feedback from working with the students specifically about adding new items for fundraisers, adding new type of expenditures. So this particular year, I mean, we asked them about 2 months ago, and so they've provided no feedback. So there's basically no change, status quo. But we just bring this to the committee annually, because in the event there is a change, there was a couple, I think it was 2023, we then take it from the committee to the board for approval.
Gotcha.
And I want to say this list is really helpful for school sites as they're pondering what are approved activities. The fact that it has been reviewed and approved by the board, I think, gives them that confidence at the school level. So we do a lot with ASB, we do proms, we do a ton of different events, DJs for dances. So I think having this be specifically pre-approved, and now we've been doing it for a number of years, so I think we've made the list more and more robust and reflective of the work that happens in schools. So I think it just brings clarity all around, and it definitely makes for a smoother process.
The coupon books used to be very popular many years ago. And now that so much is digital, are the coupon books actually physical or digital? And have they been a successful fundraising device for the student body folks?
I don't know the answer to that. I'll have to look if it's on the list, but I'm not. You have students.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm
good
gonna speak,
luck.
yeah, so I do. So this is something that is, it's probably going to depend on the level of comfort and just kind of familiarity of the coach or the club advisor. Some are a little bit more versed in some of these approaches, and so they are utilized. It probably comes down to how familiar somebody is with those, but having them be on this list is something that is available to these fundraising strategies are available for our students.
Terrific. And there, it could be updated, I suppose, as student organizations come up with different schemes for collecting money and that sort of thing.
And that's why we ask.
Schemes. I didn't say scams, I said
Approaches, yes,
Approaches.
yes, they're approaches, yes, to avoid any confusion.
Yeah, we
yes,
don't
any
want to
appro-
confuse
any
anybody, but leave your
approaches.
cash at the door.
That's why we ask them on an annual basis for their feedback, so it gets memorialized.
Oh, that's good, that's good. And then whatever, I guess, ideas they can bring to the table, they can keep us posted, and where we feel comfortable with various ideas for fundraising, that'd be terrific. Because we don't have a whole lot of money to pour into that, and the students really have to be thoughtful and roll up their sleeves on a lot of these projects, I would imagine.
Yeah, and the goal here really is when students do these fundraising activities, that the money goes to students in that fiscal year if possible. Sometimes there's rollover, and sometimes there's a little bit of a need to make up some of it. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is ensure that the students that raise the funds receive the benefit. That's the guiding approach.
That's right, okay.
And to that point, if I could add, Dr. Geary, is we'll be bringing to the next audit subcommittee meeting, because now that we've closed the books, where certain schools are with their balances and what are their spend down plans. Because to that point, we want to make sure that they're spending it for the students, and some do have some larger balances.
And are students from different schools collaborating at all on projects? Or is it each school is sort of an entity in itself?
And even, I would say it's even more of a micro approach. It's probably each club or each team. So it really starts getting pro at some point. Even not just at a school, but even like, the chess club may do fundraising for something. So it gets pretty focused and detailed.
Right. Did I skip over a couple of things? We did the unaudited actuals, a list of fundraisers, we've done that. And then the internal audit items. So where are we with the internal audits on a number of items here? We've got the fraud hotline and so forth, so.
So I'll speak to that on behalf of the team there. So Dr. Robert Hughes, our Chief Compliance Officer, provided the report. For the last quarter, there was only one case that was submitted through the fraud hotline, but it was deemed non-fraud. It was more of, that information was sent to the Director of Transportation. So it was more of, in essence, a concern or a complaint or however, but it was not necessarily fraud. It wasn't fraud.
Yeah,
It was
and
deemed
and for those who may want to know a little bit more, it's actually in the detail itself. The complaint was regarding not responding to phone calls in a timely manner. So, I mean, we address that through management and having conversations. It's not a fraud issue at all. It's just a matter of returning a phone call.
I think our last meeting, it was, I'll never get used to these buttons. In the last meeting, we noted that there were 5 complaints, right, to the fraud hotline, and none of them was considered anything truly serious, and that's something that couldn't be resolved, through discussion and better communication. But this being one complaint, and believe me, I'm a big supporter of fraud hotlines. In my last iteration, we were getting hundreds of complaints and reports a week on scams that were going on, and we were, trying to keep our arms around it. So, we don't want to get too big, but at the same time, we want to offer an opportunity. But I'm wondering if one complaint a month is enough to really keep this project going.
We can ask staff to do a review of kind of what we've averaged over the last couple of years. We've now had it, I want to say, for at least 5 years, if I recall, maybe a little bit longer, at least since the pandemic.
Yeah, it was before he started, so I'd say before 2018.
Yeah, maybe 2018. So I think we have what I like to describe as a robust mechanism for reporting any complaints. We have multiple ways of submitting complaints. This is meant to be more along the lines of financial concerns specific to fraud, and it just looks like there are not that many of them. As you can see, some are really non-fraud complaints that come in. So I'll ask the team to review how many complaints or phone calls we've received through the fraud hotline, and we can provide an update, just maybe a brief table, Dr. Salkeld, to the committee, so that you can have a kind of a visual, like how many complaints we received. And it looks like it's a quarterly reporting, if I'm correct. So we can report it by quarter. So maybe we get 1, maybe we have 5, and then that could be a better informed conversation about whether or not we believe this is something that we would like to recommend to the full board to continue or not.
Yeah.
But I'd like to do that with more information.
And I think that's totally called for. First of all, we need to communicate to our larger community that we have this fraud hotline, because it may be that most people don't know that it exists. So maybe it's in a report that we send home to somebody, maybe we do it in our newsletters from the district, but we let them know that if they feel as though they've been ripped off, there's somebody they can contact who will investigate it and maybe get justice. So if we're going to have it, let's put some resources behind it so that everybody is aware of it, and remind people on a regular basis that they do have some recourse if they feel as though they're not getting a fair shake from the district, or contractors with the district. You know what I'm saying? So far be it for me to say, oh, let's close fraud hotlines, but let's make sure that we're letting people know that it exists, and it exists to solve problems and to get justice for people who feel as though they've been ripped off.
Yeah,
Okay?
definitely. Okay.
Okay,
So we'll bring some information back for the committee to review.
I think that would be terrific. How about, any thoughts, sir? No?
No, I think that's a great idea.
And then a review of minutes from July 28th, 25. Is there, anybody want to chat about that? Okay, all right. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. And committee member comments. Mr. Solis?
No comments, thank you.
No comments there, sir. No comments from you. Mr. Superintendent, Dr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Trustee Ambrose. For me, again, I just want to say thank you for the work that happens here. I think, having been here through the evolution of this effort, it really is a place of having a lot of confidence in the work that the entire team is doing. And I think that's the reflection that we see here. Part of this conversation is the very thorough nature of the work that happens from staff across different departments. And so I think we've been working very diligently to ensure that we're building trust and confidence for our community and the work that we do. And I think the fact that we're in this place is a reflection of that. So thank you.
You bet. And studies that are continuing on are the GASB studies. And looking at facilities funds, public-private trust funds and so forth that help benefit our schools and our students. And so going forward in this committee, I hope that we'll take closer looks at how these investigations go, how these audits go, and what message they're sending to us. I know that they tend to run a couple of years late from when we were spending money, but I think that that's going to be important going forward to look at the various GASB studies and all that so forth. Anyway, anything else you'd like to add? Any winning lotto numbers? Oh, I'm not supposed to say that. My apology, but have a terrific time. We'll be back to you next month. This meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.